Hello everybody. So I wanted to do a video all about IQ and intelligence and how IQ tests break down and what intelligence really means, what intelligence really is, and what IQ measures and how to interpret the results of IQ tests. So there's a lot of people out there who have very high IQs, have IQ saying that the 150s or 160s sort of range, and I know this from having listened to Jordan Peterson that they actually don't or often don't really achieve anything really much in their lives, and you get a lot of people who've like done immense IQ tests and I've got 150 and 160, and they sort of swan around doing not a lot and not really contributing all that much to society. And then again, you get people who have very high IQs, and yeah, they do contribute a lot to society and do great things. And likewise, also you get people with lower IQs who contribute great things to society also. And I don't think IQ in and of itself is necessarily a predictor of performance or predictor of success, certainly in life. I think the answer to performance in life and success in life is somewhat more nuanced than merely being predictable by a given a scalar quantity or just a number. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. So when I was at school, I was given an IQ test to determine whether or not I needed extra time in exams in my A levels, and my bare IQ that I was given was 127, which is nicely comfortably above average. A nice sort of IQ to have. I was okay with that, I think. But when it in the breakdown of my IQ within the four categories that were being tested for, I scored very superior on verbal ability and somewhat superior on, I think, like logical reasoning, I think it was. Then the next one was slightly superior on, I think, visual spatial reasoning. And then I actually got slightly inferior on mathematical ability and memory, which is how. So my results would have got. Actually, for verbal ability and verbal comprehension of reading and writing skills, I scored in the 0.1st percentile, which is given the appellation very superior. But being the 0.1st percentile, not to sort of brag too much about my intelligence or whatnot, since there's a clear trade-off here. Is that of 1 in 1,000 people. So I was like, this is good, surely. But then, like, logical reasoning, it's like, I think, somewhat superior, not very superior even. Then, visual spatial, slightly superior, math and memory, slightly inferior. So, and I suspect, like, with these people with very high IQs, they probably achieve very superior in 3 or 4 categories without much of a trade-off, but they're probably not hitting very high levels in any given category, and that probably explains why performance and successes among people with these IQs might not necessarily be stellar. Because if they're getting like very high across the board, say in the sort of 10th or 15th percentile in 4 categories, yet not really in, say, the 1st or 0.1st category for any given percentile for any given category, then they're still out there competing. There's still very much a barrier to very profound success in any kind of skill or knowledge area or area of knowledge and skill in which they have to be competing with people who are in, say, the 0.1st percentile or in the 1st percentile. So there's a barrier created by a lot of people who perform extraordinarily high at an extraordinarily high level in one category or another. So if I got, say, the 0.1st percentile in maths ability, I would be able to outcompete even people with IQs of 150 and 60. If I had an IQ of 127 and the rest of my ability was lower, I'd be a sort of savant type in maths, if you see what I mean. And these people with 160 IQs, what doesn't really mean that much in terms of maths ability, because I'd be able to consistently outperform them in spite of the fact that their mathematical abilities might be in the 10th percentile or in the 5th percentile even. You see? So breaking down levels of performance like this and like really going for this triteness and this glibness of equating intellect with your IQ merely is very, very flawed. You need a bit more, shall we say, a bit more data to work with in order to accurately make an assessment of IQ, and not the mere number associated with your general intelligence, I think. And it's very helpful to break down your intelligence in this way and have it sort of gauged in terms of different categories and in terms of different spheres in which one might excel. So it's very, very helpful for this reason. But the IQ number, the single like set of digits, 3 digits or 2 digits, even if you score low on an IQ test, I think is somewhat unhelpful. And I think it is something of an oversimplification of a collection of different categories, which is rather diverse. And I would say, like, when it comes to like verbal reasoning, logical reasoning, visual spatial ability, and mathematical ability and memory, as I said, even those 4 categories do something of a disservice to the notion of intelligence. And then we have to get into the variety of different theories of intelligence: emotional intelligence, somatic intelligence, intuitive intelligence, mental intelligence, and all these different things, and evaluate each one on the basis of the relative share of ability that, or potential, that each individual subject to a test would have in any given one of those categories. So, yeah, IQ 127. I think I'm fairly clear. I did sort of always know this, that my math skills, don't measure up to even the average, really. I've known that forever, and like I've always classed myself as my visual spatial abilities. I'm somewhat good at tennis. I'm quite reasonably good at tennis. I can place a tennis ball nicely with a serve, but after quite a bit of practice. After putting quite a bit of effort into that, I did develop quite well developed, nice tennis skills, but it took me a while. I've always been logically quite quick. I'm rather, I think, adept at detecting logical inconsistencies and flaws in other people's arguments, and I've been a big writer and reader for my entire life, and I would credit myself with being rather adept at writing, and rather, having rather strong abilities with reading and writing. And that's how it breaks down. And I imagine my trade-off with other forms of intellect, imagine the trade-off I get for having very superior score, 0.1st percentile in verbal reasoning, it comes at the expense of the others. I imagine that's the case. Because, my brain is the same size as everyone else's. It stands to reason that the verbal centers of the brain are somewhat enhanced in my case, as opposed to in other people's, where there's more of an even distribution among the different factors forming the intelligence measured in this sort of test, or the intelligences, or components of intelligence measured in this sort of test. I imagine that's more like the case there. So I'm very happy with my intellect. I prefer to have an IQ of 127 and be very superior in one category measured by these tests, like verbal ability, than have an IQ of 150 or 160 and be above average in 4 categories, or rather superior or very superior in 4 categories, yet not 0.1st percentile in any given category. I'd rather that the former would be the case, if you receive me. So yeah, that's the point I think I wanted to make about intelligence and what IQ test scores really mean, if they mean anything at all, and the upshot of it shouldn't be that we ought to consider people even with middling or lower IQ scores as being inferior people if they excel on a given category, you know, and we shouldn't treat people whose IQ, the bare number associated with their supposed levels of general intelligence, they oughtn't be considered, and in fact probably aren't considered, generally speaking, superior to the rest of the populace. So thank you very much for watching. I love you lots, by the way.